There is so many videos and content online talking about pest management when it comes to houseplants, especially at this time of the year. This is not that type of a video. In this video, I want to dive into what I have learned over the past 7+ years of growing houseplant, the realities, what's worked, what hasn't worked, just to give you a better understanding of, you know what, pick and choose from what you see and maybe live vicariously through my experiences to maybe just give you a kind of a boost up when it comes to managing pests, especially if, like me at the moment, you are in the summer months where pests are just loving life. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So yes, different type of video for you today. It's not going to be the do this or don't do this. It's going to be me talking more about my experiences. Again, this is not going to be a video that I'm going to be bringing up an awful lot of plants to show you. If you're looking for those types of videos, I will put a link at the top there and hopefully remember to put one down below as well. But this is going to be a bit through my experiences. And I know I'm just some rando on the internet, but I have been doing this for over 7 years now. I've learnt a few things over the years, and hopefully this might be something that could give you that step up and kind of learn through my mistakes so you don't have to do them. Although I will say there's a lot of people that are still going to have to go through that journey on their own, and that is completely valid. I do have a few things that I want to talk about, not just from what I've learned, but also I've got a little list here, but also what the things are that people don't tell you when it comes to plant pest care. And I think those are as important. I'll probably start off with those, and then I will tell you my top tips as to what I've learned over the last kind of 7 years. It's not going to be the obvious kind of one, and do this and like be very gentle with this. No, these is going to be the real things that I'm still doing to this day and the things that I have found actually work. Again, in my space, with my plants, with my experience, yours might slightly vary, but you can kind of learn a bit more from kind of what I've had to go through. So without further ado, let's dive into the first one. So in this bit, I want to talk a bit more about what they don't tell you. And I'm going to start with a controversial one straight out the bat. There is, and I need you to repeat this with me, there is zero shame if you have tried everything to end up using a systemic. I said that with my full chest, and I know the level of backlash that I'm going to get in the comments in this one. I don't care. This is one of those things that a lot of people, and I have spoken to so many people that are just like, oh no, I don't want to use systemic, where they've lost half of their collection already. And I'm just like, at this point, there are certain things that you can do to kind of use systemic a bit more efficiently and a bit better. There's always going to be a risk with a systemic. The biggest one, and ironically enough, this is not the one that people focus on. Everybody's like, think of the bees. And I'm just like, I get it. I do get it. But also we are indoors. And I understand that some of it might be transferable outside through different forms, but nobody's saying sit there and spray systemic pesticide on all of your plants outside. We're talking about houseplants here. They're indoors. Yes, there is risk to children, and this is something you need to be aware of. Small kids, pets, all of those things, there is going to be a risk. So you can make that decision knowingly and say, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice some of my plants because I can't use systemic, because I also don't want to kill Fluffy or Bruno and all the, do you know what I mean? That's fine. You can make that decision. But what I want is to take away some of that stigma of like, oh no, I am the worst person in the planet for using systemic. No. No, because you've been caring for these plants for a while. You've tried all the other things. Am I saying use systemic first? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you've used everything else and nothing else seems to be working, try it. Couple of caveats. Systemic won't work on everything. Make sure that what you're picking up does work on what you are trying to achieve. The other thing that most people, again, don't talk about, systemic pesticides are different in all the different nations. The UK has different laws, the EU has different laws, America has different laws. We can all get different things, and I do love it when everybody suggests, it's just like, oh, have you tried this one? And I'm just like, invariably it's going to be somebody from Canada and America, and I'm just like, we're not allowed that. We have very little pesticides that is systemic and is still allowed in the UK and Europe, so we make do with what we can get. And I think for anybody in the UK, it's Provanto. That's the beginning and the end of that conversation. But the other thing that I think needs to be said about this is, and I don't know if the correct word is kind of a tolerance or an immunity, but specifically with thrips, which is where a lot of people will go towards systemic, especially if a lot of other things have failed. Be very careful with systemic when you do use it. Again, no shame if you do, but if you're only ever using systemic, thrip life cycles, and I've done a whole video series, I don't know if it's in a playlist. If it isn't a playlist, I'll put it at the top. If it isn't, I'll give you the video specifically on thrips about kind of life cycles and how quickly they can kind of go from larval stage to kind of full-blown thrip, adult thrip. If you imagine that you're using systemic for a year or two, what's happened is, yes, it will probably kill off most of these pests, but if some of them survive and they're the ones that are procreating over and over and over and over and over again, it's not fast enough to be called evolution, but what is then happening is the only thing that is surviving and then creating more of itself are the ones that didn't get affected with a systemic. So what will then happen at some point is a year later, you've got a house full of pests that no longer respond to systemic. And if that is your nuclear option, that is void. So just be very careful of that. The other thing that's going to be controversial is quarantining plants isn't going to work for everybody. Look at my space. Where am I going to quarantine? And it's not just me, there's a lot of other people. It's just like, there is a certain level of privilege that comes with being able to say, yeah, just quarantine your plant. And it's just like, I'll paint a picture for you, because pests don't happen in singularities. You're not just going to be like, oh, this is the summer that I'm just going to have thrips. Is it going to be a summer that you might have more thrips? Yes. But it's going to be the summer of thrips, of spider mites, of mealybugs, all of the above at the same time. Which then also means that it's just like, okay, I've got 25 plants. Each one has got a different pest. Where am I going to quarantine them? Who's got that much free space in your house that has got good conditions so that the plant doesn't struggle to survive? So okay humidity, good light levels, all of these things, whilst also still having space for all of your other plants. So let's take away the shame of telling everybody, well, you should have quarantined it, but some people don't have that option. So do not stress if you are one of those people and you just have to deal with your pests in situ. So in the situation where they are, if you do have the luxury of just shifting it off slightly so things are not touching it, that will help. So you don't want to create a pest superhighway where things can just walk across different plants. Do that at most if you can do it, but also if you can't, it's one of those things that everybody keeps saying, and I'm just like, well, that's lovely, but you're very privileged to be able to do that. I don't have that option. Me and a lot of other people, actually. Oh, and this is something that I've spoken about on my channel before. So everybody loves the Velcro plant ties that you tie around, usually janky support sticks, moss poles, and your plant. I learned this the hard way because I'm just like, I am clearing mealybugs off of my plants all of this time and they keep coming back. It's completely clear. I'm treating it with everything and it's clearing up. How are they coming back? Imagine this. Imagine my finger is a plant and possibly like a pole, and that is tight around the stem. Guess where the mealybugs are going to go? In between. And then they're just like, this is our groovy, happy place. So, top tip for you. One of the top tips from this video is if you've got Velcro plant ties and you seem to not be able to get rid of your pests, open them up on every single one of your plants and check. And then find out how many pests are now living between your plant ties and your plant. So you are welcome, and I am sorry. The other big myth is something that I hinted at the very beginning. What might work for you, what might work for me, isn't necessarily gonna work for everybody. And that is not just to do with the care that we all give our plants, because somebody might be an overwaterer or underwaterer, they might want to give too much love, as in too much light or not enough light for their plants. That's a separate issue. But a lot of the times, even the kind of ambient conditions. So I'll paint a picture. How I'm going to deal with certain types of pests here in miserable, wet, humid UK for parts of the year that might be miserable, grey and wet. Usually in the winter. We seem to be having good summers at the moment. It's great. But it'll be very different to how I'm going to treat for pests in this environment than somebody that might be treating pests in America and, say, for instance, Arizona, which is more dry and more deserty conditions. Or if you've got fans, or not fans, but air conditioning going in your house all the time. These are all going to be very different. So if something doesn't work for you, don't take it personally. I cannot stress this enough. Your conditions might just be different from whoever's giving the advice a lot of the times. Again, things will always fluctuate, but that is one thing that you need to kind of go, oh yeah. Like this advice is coming to me, say for instance, from somebody that's living in Australia, and they're almost living in a tropical region. But I live in urban New York. It's not the same. Vice versa, if you're getting advice from somebody living in New York and you live in Australia, almost in a tropical region, it's not the same. So why would you expect that the pest management would work in the same way? The other really quick thing that I want to say is something called integrated pest management systems, which you might have heard in my interview that I did with Jos, who is the Anthurium hybridizer. I'll kind of link the video at the top and down below as well. And I mentioned that question to Jos when we were talking, and he was just like, oh, well, the greenhouse that I'm growing here, because it was a commercial greenhouse, they do an integrated pest management system. I'm not going to go into too much detail with that. Feel free to Google, because Google is free, as to what that might mean. But it generally, as a kind of overall thing, is they'll do different things. So they might use some natural pesticide, they might use some systemic, they might use some predatory insects. It's a combination of everything else. They also do checks more frequently as well to see, because if you think it's bad for you, if you've got like a spider mite infestation in your 50, 100, 200 odd houseplants, think how much worse it would be as if you're a commercial grower and you are growing 50,000 plants. That is where all of your money is coming from as well. So learn from that. Do some research on integrated pest management system and you will kind of understand it's not for everybody and it's not the easiest thing of the world, because there are people that do that as part of their kind of education and their work. I think the correct term is the people that deal with pests in some of these kind of growing areas tend to be called agronomists, and there's a degree and people study for this, so don't be too disheartened if you don't fully grasp it or be able to fully do it. But this is a question that keeps coming up. It's just like, but how do the commercial growers do it? Integrated pest management systems. Very simple. Oh, and this is another one. This one I'm going to hold your hand whilst I say this. Pests will eventually happen, even to you if you've never had pests. I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Sound off down below. Also, if you are one of those rare people that has been growing for many years and you've not truthfully had a singular pest ever, do let us all know down below and maybe tell us what you're doing. But yeah, for the vast majority of people, you will get pests. You will. You will. I am sorry to tell you, but you will get pests. And I say this for a lot of people that are very smug and very quick to say, oh, I've not had any pests and I do a lot to not keep pests. And a lot of people that might be struggling with pests, they feel a bit like a kick dog there and just go, okay, fine, I'll go away. I'm a filthy person who deals with pests and has got pests. No, 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 no. No shame in that. Because you're not asking the right question of the person who says, I've never had pests. And it's just like, well, right, what do you do? How many plants have you got? Are they all growing in a terrarium or an IKEA cabinet? And also, Are you doing anything preventative for that? You're not just holier than thou and just going, look at me, I am special to whatever deity you believe in, and I will never get pests because I am better than everybody else. I'm sorry to tell you, you're not, because at some point you will get the pests as well. That's alive. You will get pests as well, because you can quarantine plants coming in all the time. That's fine. You can do all of these things. Guess where pests can also come in on? You! On your person in the spring and summer, you bring them in as well. You can say, I'm never buying another plant in my life, and you'll be the one that's going to be introducing the pests into your collection. So do not judge people. You will all eventually get pests at some point or another. It's fine. And that leads me quite nicely on to my next point, which is very closely linked to this, is it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. It really isn't. It feels like it, and this is not me being patronizing. We have all been through this. I have spoken about this on my channel. When I was first starting, I used to have nightmares about pests. Not the kind of icky nightmares that I'm just like, I feel like I've got like spider mites crawling all over me. No, more of the pests that are just like, I've got pests and they're going to decimate my plants. Let's be real for just 1 second. Firstly, I can say this, and I've said this on other videos, I can say this until I'm blue in the face, including a whole bunch of us that have been doing this for years, where we can tell people when they're first starting off, pests will happen, it's fine, it's not the end of the world. And some people, they just need to live that experience to understand it. 2-3 years down the road, they're just like, oh, it really wasn't that bad. And then it becomes a bit more like, I've got pests, it's fine, I'll deal with it. Yay, pests again. So there's that. But then also, closely linked to that is they won't kill your entire collection. I promise you they will not kill your entire collection, because that's usually the extreme point everybody kind of tends to go to, or they will 100% decimate my plant. And I will tell you why that will not happen. If you are that hyper aware of pests, even if you've only just become hyper aware of pests because you've noticed it for the first time, guess what some of that paranoia is good for? You checking your plants on a frequent basis. Yes, 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 yes. So the point I'm trying to make here is, if I was to walk away from this entire collection, or basically just have an automatic watering system, and all I do is I come in once a day, wouldn't that be easy? Oh. And just sit here and just go, I'm gonna sit and enjoy my plants, and that's the only thing I do. Yes, there's gonna be pests, and yes, that level of pests and that level of ignoring pests or not being aware that I've got pests could decimate most of my plants, if not my entire collection. What will quite quickly happen though, if you do get pests, is you'll start frequently checking, which means if you're checking, you're also treating most of the time, because you're just like, I don't want this to be bad. So the point I'm trying to make is, in order for pests to fully decimate a plant or in a collection, it takes a very long, very, very long time. Again, depending on the size of the collection, it can take months, if not years, of neglect and not being aware of it in order for it to happen. But by and large, most people will at least be kind of looking at their plants and going, oh, I'm watering this. Oh, what is that? Oh no, done. Because what you're doing is you're dealing with pests then at a manageable level. You've realized you've got a problem, whichever way you're treating it is fine, but then you're staying on top of it. So that population boom never happens, because you need a population boom in order to fully kill off a plant. Like, if mealybugs were to kill this plant, it would almost have to be where I'd see 50% of this would be mealybugs and white before this plant was fully decimated, because there's only so much damage that they could do. Yes, thrips, and I know thrips for everybody, can do a bit more visible damage and a bit faster, but again, if you've got a fully healthy plant and it's massive and bushy, it won't kill off your plant. Do not worry, because you've noticed it and you're paying attention and you're doing things to it. Just take a breath. And as a little addendum with that, it does get easier every time. Mentioned it kind of just at the beginning of this section. The more years you have to deal with pests, the more it becomes a bit more like, It's okay, it's just one more thing that I need to deal with. Swiftly on to something that again might ruffle a few feathers. If you've got a plant that is 50% infected with something like this, I give you permission. That plant can go to the compost gods. Or even the bin. I know there's a lot of people that get pressed and just go, oh, you've killed a living thing, and it's just like, that living thing is dying. You could try to bring it back. And I'm going to be painfully blunt with this because I have lived it and a lot of other people have lived it. Let me paint a picture to you. If this plant heavily infested and you try to save it without quarantine, without doing all of these things, what might, and a lot of the times will happen, you will spend months, if not a year or more, trying to bring this plant back from the point of death. If there is a point of no return. So for instance, if a plant has had that much pest, has had that much stress, it is so fully weakened, could you play God at that point and bring it back from the brink of death? Yes, but there are risks that you might infect a whole bunch of other plants and you did not throw that plant out early enough. Learn from somebody who had that mistake where my verrucosum is responsible for all of the generations of mealybugs and years of mealybugs that I've had in this space, where I should have just been a bit more brutal in that point and just gone, you are past saving. I don't think I can save you. You are so badly infected. You just need to go bye-bye. Because I value all the other plants more than me trying to be pig-headed and trying to bring you back from the brink of death. And I get it. If it's not a replaceable plant, it sucks. It does. Especially if you spend a lot of money from it. But look at it a bit more realistically. So you could try to save a plant that cost you 400 Great British pounds, $400, that might be heavily infested. But have you thought how much your entirety, and I'm talking numbers here because it's not important for everybody, but for the people that it is important, you might have 2,000, 20,000, 200,000 X monetary value worth of plants in your collection, and you're trying to save the 400, which could end up meaning that you lose a lot more from your collection. Even if you're not looking at the value, the monetary value, sentimental value, you've saved a plant that might be important to you. What if that one plant was to kill off 10 other plants that are very high in sentimental value for you? There is a point where you just need to let go. And the biggest thing that I've learned over all of this time, and I kind of touched on it a bit earlier as well, and I cannot stress this enough, check, check, check. Every single time you repot, you water, you treat a plant, check for pests. Deal with the pests then, don't do with me, because people that have been here for a while, they know that I check pests and I do all these things when I'm filming because I don't ever have time. Don't do with me. Check every time, and importantly, year round, not just the spring and summer. Yes, some pests, and I don't know where this kind of weird myth came from, that pests are only going to attack in the spring and summer. Do you see more of them that period of time? Yes. But there are still pests around even in the winter months. And arguably, if a plant is actively growing in the spring and summer, it can take the stress of a pest infestation a lot better than if it gets it at winter and you've missed it because it's not doing very much. It's just, I'm just sitting here trying to get through winter and these things are sucking the life force out of me and you are doing nothing about it. Check, 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 check for pests year round. So what has worked in my collection after however many years of me growing plants? And this is going to be a bit of a rapid fire. Predatory mites, predatory insects, it doesn't have to be mites. So mites work well, the satchels that are slow release. The caveat that I will say on these is they are more kind of early infestation preventative rather than curative. If you have got an infestation and you do want to use predatory mites or predatory insects, I keep saying mites, but predatory insects, you will need to do loose kind of predatory insects. These are little kind of like release boxes, so you can usually add the little thing, otherwise you're going to have like things on your leaves. I think these are like some form of husks that they kind of transport those predatory insects to you, and they can just, it gets messy. Invest in something like this is really helpful, really helpful. And I know it's, the companies that sell these things which are essentially just a tiny bit of cardboard, a bit of like, essentially a bit of origami, for an obscene amount of money for what it truly is. But obviously they need to make a profit. I get it. Game changer. You can put it in here and they'll release themselves. It's great. It turns the loose predators into something similar to this, so it's a bit more manageable. And then at some point you can just remove this off, tuck it away somewhere, and then use it if you ever need to again. But I've mentioned this before, predatory insects for me with this many houseplants, I cannot spray everything down. And this is my level of I cannot. Yours might be entirely different, and again, do not feel any shame for that, because 200, 300 plants might be fully manageable for somebody to sit there spraying everything with pesticide, and for some people it might be 20 plants is too much to deal with that. So everybody's threshold is different. No shaming, please. So predatory insects are the first thing. The other thing as well, and I'm using the spray here as an example, but what I actually mean is in the shower or in the garden if it's warm enough with like a spray attachment on a hose. A lot of the time, if you can move your plants into those spaces, into the shower, outside in the garden, and you can just blast it down with water, it's basically knocking off spider mites, mealybugs, adult thrips. It's going to knock off most of these pests off of those leaves. Is this a cure-all? No. In an ideal world, it could work exceptionally well if you don't have that many plants and you can just every time you water do that in the shower and every time shower it down. You are golden. Because even if some of those, the larvae or the babies of these pests survive on the leaves after you've knocked off all of the adults, then because you're doing it frequently enough and you're doing it for every watering, I know this is not going to be possible for everybody, you're going to be constantly knocking them off. So that is the least toxic way of being able to preempt and possibly deal with pests. And I'm thinking the kind of plants that might need watering once a week or once every 5 days or once every 10 days, that's doable. On that point, consistency. Cannot stress enough. Because I've had people that are just like, I've used the predatory insects and they didn't work, and they bought this once in the summer. And I'm just like, no, my sweet summer child. It's expensive for a reason. It's not just expensive to get it once. It's the fact that you need to get this every 4 to 6 weeks and replace and replace and replace. That's why it's expensive. I'm not being patronizing in the sense that I'm just like, if you can't afford it, don't do it. Nobody can afford that. That's just an obscene amount of money. It just takes off some of the edge. Even I don't do it as often as I probably should. But I also know that if I then have a bit of a bounce back, it's just because like, this dum-dum didn't, or forgot to do it, or didn't have enough money to do it. So it's fine, I now need to deal with it and just get on with it, really. So yes, frequency is key. And I will come on to the nematodes, because a lot of people, when they're first starting off, their biggest concern is fungus gnats. The people that have been doing this for a while that have progressed from fungus gnats into things like thrips or mealybugs, they're like, oh, the fungus gnat days. I remember that fondly. It's annoying, don't get me wrong, because it's one of the few pests that will smack you in the face. I think it's the only pest really that's going to like constantly fly into your face. I get it. Quick and simple, what has worked for me, and I know it has worked for everybody, not saying that it will do for everybody, but it's worked for a lot of people. Nematodes. Soil drenchers, you do that once, maybe twice in a season. Actually, for me, there was a point where I was doing it once a year when I kind of obliterated all of them. I've got better watering tactics now, so I don't generally tend to get them. But first year, I did it once at the beginning of the growing season, once at the end of the growing season, and then the following 2 or 3 years, I did it once at the beginning of the growing season every time. Like a charm. Disappeared entirely. Those sticky traps are annoying. the cinnamons of it all, the diatomaceous of it all. I'm not saying that it doesn't work for some people, but at this scale, drop in the ocean. I need nuclear options, and that is the nuclear option, which is also biological, so it's winning. The next one is something like what I've got in here, which is a Castile soap mixture. And this is a mixture of, I did a whole thing where I mentioned about it, and again, I'll link the video at the top and in the description. But it's a mixture of water and Castile soaps. People do this in their own way. They'll add neem. Apparently there's issues with neem. I don't know. I don't want to dive into that too much because I don't fully understand it, but neem never particularly worked for me, and I'll be honest. I also am one of those people that my sense of smell is massively offended by the smell of neem. I find it so overpowering that I just cannot abide it. I'm just like, the pests might be dying, but my nose is as well. So I'd rather not use it if I can help it. So Castile soap and water, like a charm. Originally was just for mealybugs. It has worked the charm for everything else. It just takes a bit longer. The thing I will say, and I'm trying to remember who that original channel was that I got it from, and I will add it at the top there. I've spoken about this in the past. So with something like spider mites, spray on the leaves, old kind of fluffy makeup brush or whatever brush, painter's brush or whatever, something that won't damage the leaves, and just rub it in, and it's more of a mechanical thing. Do you need a brush? No, I don't have a brush these days, so I just rub it in with my hands. It just makes sure that all of those spider mites are kind of coated in it and slowly die off. It's not a one and done. Consistency we were talking about before, it's not just for beneficial insects. People always ask, like, how long do I need to do it? I'm just like, spray, if you're spraying whatever, either systemic or more biological forms like the Castile soap and things like that. Spray it, come back in 2 weeks, do it again, come back in 2 weeks after that, do it again, come back in 2 weeks after that and do it again. And if you're seeing any pests after 4 applications, do it a 5th application. It's very simple. But yeah, consistency is key, and keep an eye out for your other plants that are around that one to see if it has progressed to them as well. And yeah, I'll end on a similar note to how I started, systemic. If all else has failed, there is no shame, as I said earlier on. Try systemic. It would potentially work for you, but again, make sure that you're getting systemic that will work for the pests that you're trying to target, and not just something that is just like, this will work on thrips, but you are trying to kill the mealybugs, and it does not work on mealybugs because you're just like, systemic isn't working, it's not meant to. Things work in different ways, a shocker. So yes, make sure that you're using the right type of systemic. Make sure that you are taking precautions around your breathing, around animals, around small kids, all of these things, making sure that it doesn't go outside into things like killing off bee populations and all of these things. But by and large, if that is your final nuclear option, do it. Do it. I'm not going to be here to judge you. There's going to be plenty of people to judge you, but the thing that I always say to that, and I'm just like, if they've got nothing better to do than judge you for systemic, that's a them problem, it's not a you problem. You are fine. You are doing fine. Keep doing what you need to do in order to deal with those pests for your plants and for yourself as well. But yes, on that note, I think I might start wrapping up here, sorry. Memo on his soapbox today. But it's just because I generally, and you might have noticed this over the years, I don't tend to do a lot of pest videos because I've done a lot of pest videos, and there's so many people that do pest management videos. I get it, and I know some people are just like, but we need to know your way. This is my way of telling you my way. In one fell sweep. This is what I've experienced over so many years. This is the stuff that I've been doing year and year and year, and it does work for me. Have I cleared all my mealybugs yet? No. Am I still salty about that? Yes. Am I willing to, God, what was the thing that everybody was doing at some point? They were doing like sulfur thing. And I know it's worked for some people. I'm just like, I want to do that, but I'm just like, I'm a bit unsure on the results. And also, I don't know if I want my whole house to smell of farts and rotten eggs. I know some of you have done it, and I know some of you have had good success. I've not tried it, so I couldn't do it. It also isn't necessarily the easiest thing for people to do, like if they're living in an apartment in some of the big cities of the world. Especially if it's a rental apartment, you don't want your whole apartment to smell of sulfur. But I will leave that there. But yeah, sorry, these are a bit more of my hot takes. Apologies for me being on my little soapbox, but I hear a lot of things, and I'm very protective of every single one of you that watches this, and I get really angry on your behalf when people start being judgmental about what you do or what you don't do, or how you feel and don't feel about pests. You are all valid. You are all on your own journeys on how to get there. None of us can take that away from you, and none of us should try to take that away from you. So keep doing you. If you don't find any of this useful, that's absolutely fine. Thanks for watching anyway. But yeah, like, keep doing you. Pests won't be the end of the world. You will deal with them. They probably won't kill your collection. And you know what? If a plant is severely infected, it just needs to go to the compost gods. And on that happy note, I shall let you go. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.